All right, we've had some big things. For one, preseason will wrap up tomorrow on Thursday, 8:30, August 30th. We also going to talk about roster perennial cuts and or trades that could happen within a few weeks. Which I will get into later. We also have some big player news, contract extensions, still some holdouts, as well as a couple other big news, which we'll get to, and I will lay my thoughts into. And of course, I will also be giving my playoff team predictions for the final time. And of course, we have our first rookie news. This and more coming on Rambin Matt's Football Podcast. All right, like I stated into the beginning, the preseason is wrapping up on Thursday. All games will be on Thursday. They will range from starting at 6 or 5 o'clock Central Standard Time, going by mostly Central Standard Time, and some of them will probably go into 9 or 10 o'clock. And of course, many of the players are going to be playing. You shouldn't see any starters playing. You shouldn't see any regulars playing, unless they're on the bubble, because you're going to see a lot of players that teams are going to go, should we keep them? Should we not? They'll be debating constantly whether or not to keep them or not, and it's definitely going to be an interesting thing to see. And of course, speaking of bubble players, I've made a list of 3 players I think we could be seeing, getting cut or traded at some point between Thursday and I want to say the deadline for all the cuts, because for one, I am a very, very big sucker for these roster cuts. But hey, and of course, some of them, I've really had to dig some of these, because as much as I love watching football, I don't always keep a good track on everything going on, especially when it comes to nitty and gritty on certain things. If it's pretty major, I'll find out about it at some point, but even the minor things. So I try and keep up with as many stories as possible, trying to read as much as I can. But hey, I'm only imperfect. Of course, I also have some shocking ones that some people go, whoa, why'd you put them on there? This team ain't getting rid of them. Well, I'll go into detail of them. So before you hit a thumbs down or comment or something like that, just hear me out first, and you might start nodding your head a little bit, or at least see the understanding on where I am going with this. So to start, of course, to the Arizona Cardinals, the 3 players I've mentioned that you guys should pay attention to on cuts day. It's wide receiver J.J. Nelson, running back Elijah Penny, and offensive tackle Andre Smith. So I'm going to pick. And of course, when doing them, I'm only going to pick one player. And the one I'm going to go with is J.J. Nelson. The thing about J.J. Nelson is that he's a very good He's a very good speed demon player, very fast. He's also pretty small. I think he weighs 170 pounds, and he's 5'10". And he was really supposed to get this big leap where he was probably going to be started. But from what I'm heard and saw. Nelson has been he's been kind of falling down depth chart. He's losing snaps to guys like Christian Kirk, their 2nd round pick, and even last year's 7th round pick, Chad Williams out of Grambling. Both those players have done pretty well in camp and even in preseason, to where they might get more snaps. And J.J. Nelson's been kind of falling down a bit, kind of not really making a big old stay on the team. I think cutting him is probably going to be a 50-50 kind of thing. I think he has a better chance of staying, but I wouldn't be surprised if he will not get traded, per se. I think he might be a good trade candidate for a team that's really looking for a deep threat. He's not really much of a consistent deep threat. I think one of it definitely has to do with his size, him being 170 pounds. He definitely definitely needs to put on some weight, but hey, he's a name I would definitely watch. And if he does, say the Cardinals do release him, I do think he'll get signed. He'll probably be the 5th receiver a lot for many teams, rarely active, but he'll be a nice name to track if he's not on the Cardinals anymore. in Atlanta now. Just watch. Okay, 3 players I have lifted are Leon McFadden, Deontay Burton, and defensive back Demonte Cassie. Now, I know, upon hearing Cassie's name, Atlanta fans are probably going ape shit over this, but here's why I say Cassie. I've heard everything. I've read the news. I've read everything that has happened. Demonte Cassie has been doing extremely well in preseason. He's done very well getting interceptions, and he's making the transition well to safety. And he's definitely not a candidate to cut. He'll make the 53. But it would not surprise me if Atlanta shops him. Why? Because they are incredibly crowded at the defensive backfield. At corner, you have Robert Alford and Desmond Trufant as your starters, and they also drafted Isaiah Oliver, and I think in the second round. I saw that somewhere, and I think Oliver is going to get a few playing times. And at safety, of course, you have Keanu being your free safety, but they also re-signed, I think, Brian Poole as their free safety to a 3-year extension. So there's going to be a bit of a trouble, You're just kind of crowded, and as the years go on, it's going to be debating, should we keep him? Should we let him go? Or if we can get a really good pick, if a team is calling us like crazy because, say they are the Chargers per se, or the Colts, they really need a defensive back. They need anyone, and they're willing to offer, a really good pick, like a second round or like a second round pick per se. If the Colts come calling to you and say, we will offer you a second round pick for Kazi, do you take it, Atlanta? And I'm pretty sure Atlanta fans will go, yeah, that sounds nice. I mean, of course, they probably want to sweeten the deal and get a first round pick, because I think they got this guy in the 5th round, and getting a second round pick out of this, that's a huge benefit. And of course, this is just a theory. I think he's probably going to stay on the team until probably his 3rd or 4th year, where his rookie contract is about to expire, and they're essentially satisfied with their starters. So I don't see Kazi really ever getting a chance to start, but I think he'll be a very nice trade candidate. So that's not a name I would say watch for being cut. That's a name I'll definitely say watch for being traded. Baltimore Ravens, some of them are pretty predictable. You'll have wide receiver Brashad Perriman, defensive line Carl Davis, and quarterback Robert Griffin III. Now, the one I really pick out, of course, is Brashad Perriman. Oh, what happens when you fall in love with a guy's athleticism? The Ravens went full out Davis, chased the guy's pure speed, and unfortunately got bit pretty big. He has been healthy the entire 2015 season. 2016, he even struggled with his health. 2017, when he tried coming in, he struggled. Not with his health this time, but just struggling altogether. Especially in the Hall of Fame game, where RG3 throws this perfect pass, goes in his hands, and it bounces out. And that kind of stuff will definitely not land you on an NFL team. I'm pretty sure he's a candidate that's most likely to be cut. I don't really see anyone really trading for him unless they're pretty desperate or pretty light. But he's probably going to be a guy that's going to he's going to get cut and maybe signed, depending on the depth situation on teams when they lose all their players and lose the rest of their players. I did like Perryman, in the combine, because you always kind of root for those uber athletic players, but I really don't see I really don't see him really kind of sticking with the team much, or even for long. Problem is that he's mainly athleticism, and that's kind of it. And of course, with the Bills, you have running back Travaris Cadet, Nick O'Leary, and wide receiver Rod Streeter. I'll probably pick out Travaris Cadet because he's probably the most well-known player on the scene. Yeah. Keep in mind, the Bills have a lot of former Saints running backs. Well, former Saints players in general. They have Ivory, Cadet, Murphy, and Brad Bush. And the reason why I pick out Cadets because they've been impressed with Ivory because he's a downhill bruiser runner, and Murphy so far has impressed him pretty well to where maybe Cadet's probably a liability now. Now he's probably going to get cut. And the thing is that Marcus Murphy he can play catch. Well, I call him Muffy because Bills fans will see why. But to keep going, he mu- I think with Marcus Murphy and Chris Ivory there, I doubt they're probably going to keep 4 running backs. They're still trying to find like this really good backup running back, or heck, even someone who can take McCoy's spot because he's entering his early 30s. I think he's now 31 or 32. So eventually replacement's going to have to be made for him, and he'll probably be back for the team. Probably just sign release, but I really don't see him sticking very long. And of course, the Panthers. Going on to the Panthers, their 3 are Cameron Artis-Payne, Torrey Smith, and Colin Jones. I'm going to go with Torrey Smith. It's pretty interesting because they traded for this guy. They got rid of Darrell Worley, one of their young corners, and got Torrey Smith. But apparently, he's on the fringe. They don't know what they're probably going to do. They don't know if they want to keep him or release him. I don't know if that should say how bad Torrey Smith is playing or how good the Panthers wide receivers are getting. Like, are they that much better than Torrey Smith? I mean, I know Funches is a starter. I've seen what Curtis Samuel is doing right now. Looks like the healthy Curtis Samuel is starting to show what he can do. And of course, they drafted DJ Moore in the first round, so I could definitely see why they would get rid of Torrey Smith. You got someone who can be the big deep threat in Samuel, and of course you have DJ Moore who you want to give respectable playing time too. So I can see it there. It'll be pretty shocking. Will he get signed if he gets released? Good question. I think a team desperate for wide receivers will probably host him for a workout and eventually bring him in. I think there's a few teams that can definitely need him, like the Colts, for example. Maybe the Jaguars if they really want to. It all depends. On to the next team. Of course, you have the Chicago Bears, and the 3 players I have are Kevin White, Jonathan Bullard, and defensive back DeAndre Houston Carson. And the one I'm definitely picking on is Kevin White. Who hasn't heard the story of Kevin White? He was hurt his rookie year, hurt. So, yeah, health has been a big problem for Kevin White. He's been on the transfer table more than he's been on the field. That will guarantee anyone a release. And his preseason, I think his preseason has been pretty quiet. I mean, yeah, he's got a touchdown, but that's not what they want. They don't want quiet. They want loud. They want exciting. Because they got all these other wide receivers, Gabriel, Robinson, Miller, and they're hoping that he can come in even as a 4th wide receiver, or maybe in some special formations, etc. So who knows what's going to happen. I think this guy's probably a good chance of getting released. Be pretty interesting though. I don't know if he'll probably might get signed again, or he'll just might be a common player. They'll just come in and say, "Hey, come work out for us. See what happens," and they'll see what happens. On we go. Cincinnati Bengals. I have wide receiver Cody Core, quarterback Jeff Driscoll, and linebacker Chris Worley. I don't really like talking about rookies that much unless they're performing really, really shitty. And so someone I will go to is most definitely wide receiver Cody Core. This was a wide receiver they drafted in the 6th round in 2016 draft. And, with the recent release of LaFell, it opened up new possibilities for the wide receivers. So far, John Ross has stepped up. Tyler Boyd is bound to get a good role increase. And one wide receiver I'm hearing is getting a good amount of praise in Cincinnati is Auden Tate, one of the undrafted free agents. And Auden Tate, I think, is just one of those big body possession wide receivers. And I think another wide receiver has also been getting some good reps in, and I don't see many teams keeping 6 wide receivers. I've seen many of them keeping 4 or 5. They usually keep 4. If they keep 4, that means okay, we're probably going to look in free agency and see who gets released or if there's a trade candidate somewhere. And if they keep 5, you probably have 4 starters and maybe a special teamer. And with Core, I think he's going to get cut, and I don't know if he'll be back. I don't know if he'll get on a team. I think he'll be a good candidate for we're just going to have you come try out with a bunch of other wide receivers, but I don't see him really being signed by anyone, and probably until next off season where he's probably a camp body. And when the Cleveland Browns have offensive tackle Sean Coleman, running back Matthew Days, and wide receiver Jeff Janis. One I definitely want to talk about is offensive tackle Sean Coleman, because last season, going into 2017, I've heard nothing but raise from a lot of people, especially from the guys at Pro Football Focus, talking about the potential of this Cleveland offensive line. They had Joe Thomas at left tackle. They brought in Kevin Zeller to play left guard. At center, they had J.C. Treader, center that they picked up from the Packers. At the other guard, they had Joel Bodita, or they probably flipped it to Bodita was probably playing left guard, and Zeller was going to play right guard. And of course, at right tackle, they had Sean Coleman. And I thought, okay, maybe Sean Coleman might do something. He might improve drastically. That did not turn out to be the case. Now he looks like a candidate for release. I'm not sure. I haven't watched too many Cleveland Browns football, so I'm not 100% sure what's going on, but it's really telling if this is a guy that Cleveland Browns are pondering whether or not to get rid of. It's pretty sad to see that happen. Going from a perennial starting right tackle to a candidate for release. Yikes. Of course, going on with the Dallas Cowboys, 3 players I have are edge rusher Charles Tapper, cornerback Marquise White, and tight end Rico Gathers. And the one, of course, I'm going to talk about is Rico Gathers. Gathers was supposed to be one of those tight ends that was supposed to one day replace Jason Witten. And of course, Jason Witten's gone. So now it's an open competition to see who can be the next starting tight end. And it looks like he really hasn't made his mark on a team. I think Gathers will definitely be a hot commodity. I don't know if he'll ever be traded. And if he does, I think you're probably looking at a 2020 conditional pick. But he's likely to be released. He's probably going to get a ton of bidders. He'll probably be the 3 tight end a lot because from what I'm hearing, he's very athletic. And he does have some latent potential to be a very gifted tight end. Just that needs good coaching, probably good. Needs to get a good grasp of the offense, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't really see, and I think that's probably the main thing with Gathers. It's probably the coaching. He probably needs to unlock his latent gifts. Yep. All right, of course, for the Denver Broncos, I'm sure you guys have seen, and this was definitely surprising. I got 3 guys I definitely, 2 of them I did see happening. Well, 1 guy I did see happening. 2 of them were pretty surprising for me. One of them was, so let's have a look. Carlos Henderson, the wide receiver, quarterback Paxton Lynch, and running back Devontae Booker. I'll probably talk about Carlos Henderson and Booker because both of them surprised. Both of them were drafted in 2016, hoping to be the next big ticket, next big things. From what I'm hearing from Henderson, he hasn't really made his mark. He's either been injured or not really been on the team much. And there's really nothing that I'm really seeing from Henderson. When I did team breakdowns earlier in June, I thought Henderson was probably going to be one of the three young wide receivers pairing up with Hamilton and Sutton to be, this trio that when paired up with a good young quarterback would be a very dangerous receiving core. But it doesn't look like it might be the case. He could be a subject of termination if someone is really stepping up that's ahead of him, because here's who I have his first 4 wide receivers so far. You have Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, Cortland Sutton, and from what I've heard, Deshaun Hamilton's also playing pretty well, so he'll probably make the team. So to see what's happening to Henderson is pretty damning. I could definitely see if they had a really good young wide receiver that outplayed him, fair is fair. And if he does get cut, he'll definitely be a hot commodity. And one that I was surprised to see was definitely Devontae Booker. I thought Booker was a very good running back, and one of the plans was to split carries with a rookie running back, Royce Freeman, have them split carries throughout the season. But if Booker is on the bubble or something, and it's probably not for a subject of release. He's probably not a candidate for release. He's probably a candidate for trade. I don't know how true this is. I'm pretty sure there's going to be Broncos fans going in and saying, no, they're not getting rid of Booker. They never would get rid of Booker. They count on him and all this kind of stuff. And you're probably right. But, and in case you're wondering, again, I'm probably looking at, Denver Wire or something, some local Denver fan site looking for this. And like I said, if they do get rid of Booker, he's probably a trade candidate, probably get some picks, probably see a running back that they really like and might bring in. But for all I know, he's most likely safe. Of course, looking at the Detroit Lions, you have two running backs and a defensive lineman. Running backs Amir Abdullah and Zach Zenner, and defensive lineman Cam Johnson. Now, one running back I think is definitely going to be gone is Zach Zenner, that running back. He did well, I think, back in 2015 in the preseason where he really made his mark, but slowly but surely he has been on the decline. Because for one, he's not a fast running back. That's the thing. He's not that fast of a running back. He's pretty methodical, very good runner with some good balance. He has some pass protection, but the problem is they drafted Kerryon Johnson in the first round, and they also have LeGarrette Blount. Those two running backs are going to get prominent carries. And of course, I have Amir Abdullah also listed, but he's most likely going to be a trade candidate. And if they really can't find someone to trade with, they'll probably keep him on as a special teams guy because he does have value on special teams. I don't think Zenner outside, playing, gunner or something like that. But Amir Abdullah can at least return, so it would give guys like Jamal Agnew a little break and also gives them a little breather. It's just that I think Zenner is between Abdullah and Zenner, I think Zenner is absolutely gone. Yeah. So, of course, the Green Bay Packers definitely had to edit this list because of one of the recent news. You'll see. I have defensive back Quinn Rollins, quarterback Brett Hundley, and offensive line and outside linebacker Vince Beagle. Of course, Brett Hundley recently got traded away. I forgot who to. But yeah, Hundley is gone now, so looks like Deshaun Kaiser is going to be the back quarterback, and they're hoping that Aaron Rodgers does not shatter his collarbone. More on him later. So I'm gonna go with the guy I probably was going to talk about, and that is defensive back Quentin Rollins. This was an interesting one because back in 2014, the Packers drafted two defensive backs, Demarius Randall. 2015. I'm wrong. I'm sorry. 2015, they drafted Quentin Rollins and Demarius Randall. Or was it 2014? Here I am getting my years wrong. It was probably 14. Randall's already gone. He got traded to Cleveland. And Rollins could be another one. I think Randall had made a bigger mark, both good and bad. And Rollins has just been pretty quiet. I think they didn't want to get rid of him because of primarily draft status. But with all the defensive backs stepping up, of course, they drafted two guys, Jari Alexander and Josh Jackson, who are both standing out in preseason. I'm very happy about that. Those were when I would talk about the secondary for the Green Bay Packers and about their young potential secondary. And to see those two playing well definitely brings a smile on my face. I was very happy to hear those guys do well, and I'm hoping that they could translate that preseason success to the regular season. I'm also hoping that Kevin King can play, please. And of course, they also brought in Jamal Williams, and he still had Devon House. I was tempted to put Devon House in here, and if I had to, I'd probably cross out Hundley and put in House, but semantics. I do think Rollins is definitely on his way out. He's probably not going to remain with the team unless they see something in him. He's definitely a strong candidate for release. Looking at the Houston Texans, these were three positions that These are three people I never thought I'd see. Wide receiver Braxton Miller, defensive lineman Carlos Watkins, and offensive lineman David Quinsberry. I think Quinsberry was the guy who was recovering from cancer, wasn't he? I've heard about that from the Texans. In some Texans news I saw. Probably had that wrong. But based on what I see, I guess the one I would really talk about is Carlos Watkins, because I was going to talk about Braxton Miller before I'm hearing Kiki Katui has been battling injuries, so that could keep Braxton Miller on the team primarily for depth purposes. So I guess the one I have to talk about is probably Carlos Watkins. This was pretty interesting. I thought he was a starter for the Houston Texans, but I guess with health, he's getting healthy. Things are just getting better for him. Are getting better for the Houston Texans defensive line overall. So it's pretty interesting to see that happen. It really is. I really don't know what's going to happen. I think he's probably more of a candidate for trade than release. They probably trained probably at best will get a 2019 6th-round pick. Might be a conditional one where he'll have to fulfill certain conditions. But he's definitely someone I would keep an eye on. If he gets released, he's bound to get plenty of suitors. Probably line up in a more 4-3 lineup as a defensive tackle. I still think he's a really good defensive tackle, but that's just me. All right, going to Indianapolis Colts, you have offensive tackle Lee Raven Clark, running back Rasheem Michael, and edge rusher John Simon. Now, when I talk about John Simon, he's definitely not a candidate for release. The only way I could see him getting released is if he'll only get released if the cap penalty is too big, but it's the Colts. They have plenty of cap room. But still, with John Simon, he's a very good edge rusher, and he could even drop back and coverage a little bit, kind of the sneaking guy. He wouldn't be someone I would drop back a lot. But one thing I can definitely see why they would get rid of John Simon is because of the scheme switch, as well as all the edge rushers they brought in through the draft. They drafted two within day two. They drafted Kamiko Toure and Tyquan Lewis. Now, John Simon is probably going to be more of a candidate for trade. He'll go to a team, say like Kansas City Chiefs, who run the perfect scheme for him to really flourish in. This is more. He's probably a 0% chance as a candidate for release, but he'll be a high candidate for trade. Of course, going to the AFC South, continuing the AFC South, 3 in a row, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and 3 players I've managed to see are Jalen Myrick, defensive lineman Michael Bennett, and Chris Reed, and offensive lineman Chris Reed. Now I'm going to talk about Michael Bennett because this is not the same Michael Bennett. There are 2 Michael Bennetts. There's one of them who's currently with the Eagles. This is one of the Ohio State Buckeyes, Michael Bennett, who I think he'll definitely get released. This is one of the former Buckeyes. I think he had like a day 2 grade on him in the 3rd round, was taken in the 6th round. And I think definitely one of his problems, I think, is keeping weight, because all I've seen from Bennett in terms of weight is 287 pounds, which isn't bad for someone like who's 6'5". You could probably throw him an edge rusher, but he's 6'2". At that point, he should have hit the 300-pound mark, but Jacksonville has not been impressed with this guy. I think definitely with the arrival of Taven Bryan, his stay on the team will be very short-lived. I think he's definitely going to be a candidate for release. No idea if he'll get signed anywhere, but this will definitely be his last day playing with the Chiefs. Going on to the Kansas City Chiefs, and one of them is definitely going to surprise you. It's definitely going to make you mad. I have wide receiver Chris Conley, wide receiver DeAnthony Thomas, and offensive lineman Parker Iinger. Now, here's why I have Conley. This was a guy they were hoping that would stand out and step up, and from what I've seen, he's done okay, but that's kind of it. Nothing really noteworthy. I thought it was supposed to be this big wide receiver to pair up, but when you have Sammy Watkins now thrown into the mix, it's going to be pretty interesting. I think he still has I think he still has a spot on the team. It's just, but any chance for him to be this long-term starter, I mean, I think it's all but gone. He played 5. Oh, I didn't realize he played 5 games, so no wonder why I've barely seen his name. Only 1 touch, Jesus. So yeah, but I think a healthier Connolly and someone who's probably on the field more. If he stays on the field and probably with a different, and now he's on a different quarterback, who I'm hoping they're willing to throw the ball more. There's a good chance he could improve. I think if he's on there, he's not a candidate for release. He's probably a candidate for trade. For trade, probably get like a 5th round out of him, which wouldn't be a bad offer considering they got him in the 3rd round. Looking at the Chargers, they have kicker Caleb Sturgis, quarterback Cardale Jones, and offensive lineman Greg Mager. Now, here's what I'll say about Cardale Jones. They traded for this guy from the Bills. Maybe one day he'll be the replacement for Phillip Rivers, right? Now, he's not. I don't know if he's doing better or not against Geno Smith, but I think Geno Smith being Geno Smith, Cardale Jones is probably out. I doubt the Chargers probably keep 3 quarterbacks. So I think it's probably going to be Jones. It'll be between Jones and Smith. And yeah, that's probably going to be one of the main questions. Will they actually keep 3 quarterbacks, or will they just stick with 2? I'm willing to bet they're going to stick with 2, so Jones is probably out. Looking at the Rams, you have defensive lineman Dominique Easley. Dominique Easley, someone they traded for from the Patriots. Of course, you have wide receiver Mike Thomas, different Mike Thomas from Southern Miss, and offensive lineman Cornelius Lucas. I'll definitely talk about Easley because he's definitely someone worthy talking to. The best thing about Dominique Easley is that he's a good defensive lineman, can get good pressure. Problem is his durability. So if he does get released, he'll have some suitors that will want his services, and he won't be on the market for very long. If he does get released, I have him getting signed by no later than September 4th, and that's being generous. Continue on, looking at the Miami Dolphins, I have running back Jeremy Langford, quarterback Brock Osweiler, and wide receiver Leonte Carew. And when talking about Leonte Carew, it's definitely going to be interesting to see if he will actually survive these cuts. This was a guy they were really hoping that he can step up and play well. Turns out no. And I think it's mostly about injuries and performance. I think he's a probably stronger candidate for release and trade. I don't know if they'll get anything. Probably at best maybe a 2021 conditional pick or even a 2020 conditional pick. Carew might get a couple suitors. He'll probably mostly get a handful of tryouts. Might sign with the team just to get released maybe 3 days later or so. But he's definitely not someone. I could pay attention to. Minnesota Vikings to me have probably the most interesting one out of all of them. Edge rusher Brian Robinson, cornerback Mackenzie Alexander, and wide receiver Laquan Treadwell. Now, I am going to briefly go over all 3 of them because it's way too interesting. With Brian Robinson, I think it's a matter of age, and they want to get some of these young edge rushers more of the spotlight. He did have to split time with Danielle Hunter or something like that. I'm not sure how to properly say it. Who really set up, got a good contract extension, so I think he's going to be starting edge rusher. They also brought in. They have all these other young edge rushers that they're going to try, so Robinson just might be the odd man out. He'll probably get signed with the team as a rotational guy. Well, as a 2-down guy, because he can still play very good run defense. With Mackenzie Alexander, this was definitely one of the surprising ones. I thought he'd be a very good slot corner, but apparently he's been struggling to really get in the lineup. And of course, it's really telling when Mike Zimmer says, give me back Terrence Newman. Yeah, so he'll probably be a strong subject for release. No idea if he'll get signed anywhere. He'll probably get a few tryouts. And if he does land with the team, he might last for a couple weeks or so. And of course, Laquan Treadwell, this isn't so much a candidate for release. This is more of a candidate for trade. Treadwell has not really made his mark with the Minnesota Vikings. Really struggled to really stand up and stand out. This could be the breakout year for him, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point more during around the season 2018, he will be a candidate for trade, especially when the trade block rolls around. Looking at looking at the New England Patriots, I have my running back Mike Gesicki, defensive tackle Malcolm Brown, and wide receiver Philip Dorsett. And of course, let's talk about Mike Gesicki. If he's not the most once again, he's a victim of being a Patriots running back. Remember Jonas Gray? How we had that big game against the Colts where he ran for over 100 yards and had 3 touchdowns? You never heard from him again because he had to be kind of a dumbass. Gesicki's not a dumbass, but he will be a victim of just being on the Patriots roster. He had a great game against the Kansas City Chiefs where he rushed for like 3 touchdowns, being the main back, then slowly but surely was played out of the team. And of course, with all these bevy of running backs that the New England Patriots had, Gesicki is probably going to be a candidate for release. He's bound to get signed somewhere. I doubt he'll last in free agency for more than a day or so. But I would be kind of shocked if they didn't release him, because if they did, they probably heard of some suitors and want to try and see if they can get a good draft pick, especially from a team that's really, really desperate for a running back or so. But I can definitely see Gesicki getting released from the Patriots. All right, looking at the New Orleans Saints, I have edge rusher Halil Kikaha, wide receiver Austin Carr, and cornerback P.J. Williams. And we're talking about Kikaha. This was a guy that the Saints were hoping that can be this really good edge rusher, but when he tore his ACL back in 2016, it really hindered any chance of him being. He really did affect him, in the long run. They re-signed Alex Okafor. They brought in Marcus Davenport in the draft, the first round. Of course, Trey Hendrickson's playing well. He's probably either going to be cut or trade. They're probably going to listen to suitors, probably try and shop around, see if they can get any kind of pick for him. But the chances are he might get released unless there's like these suitors are popping out of nowhere where they're calling the Saints left and right saying, hey, we really need an edge rusher. Can we get Kikaha? Which that's the only way I see it. Of course, we got the New York Giants. 3 players I have are Jonathan Stewart, Darian Thompson, and Andrew Adams. Now, looking at Jonathan Stewart, this is pretty interesting to see. He has a high cap number, and he's also getting outplayed, especially by second year running back. Yeah, second year running back Wayne Gallman, who many people think he's probably going to be the one who splits carries with Saquon Barkley because they don't want to run him to the ground. Oh, wait a second, it's Mike Shula. He is going to be run to the ground. But Jonathan Stewart, age has really caught up to him. I think he might be a strong candidate for release, and if he does get released, his suitors, that if he had any, would steadily decline. I think Stewart is still a very capable running back, but I think age and being with Mike Shula have definitely worn out his miles. And of course, in New York, then we look at the New York Jets. I have running back Bilal Powell, Terrell Pryor, and J.J. Wilcox. Now, here's the reason why I have Bilal Powell. He's not going to get released. There's no way. But what about trade? Is there a possibility of him getting traded? That's the question. And I think the Jets should be open to it. If they really want an edge rusher, a good edge rusher, don't be afraid to offer up Powell because they have Isaiah Crowell, who's a 2-down runner. Elijah McGuire, when he does recover from his foot injury, can be a receiving running back. But for the time being, this is a candidate. I don't think they're going to trade him immediately unless McGuire does prove himself to be healthy. But I think, as the trade deadline looms, he'll be a guy to really keep an eye on. To keep an eye on, keep an ear out. Of course, for the Oakland Raiders, you have defensive back Leon Hall, running back DeAndre Washington, and defensive lineman Mario Edwards Jr. Yes, you Jr. Who doesn't like Sean Connery? So I want to I'll pick out DeAndre Washington because it is pretty interesting to see. I like DeAndre Washington made the team in 2016, kind of the third running back in the end. I think he was the one that had that big play against New Orleans Saints where he just broke out, ran like a 56-yard touchdown. And now he's probably subject for release. I think mostly due to the crowded running backs that they have. With Marshawn Lynch and Doug Martin, he could be probably a good candidate for release. I would bet that this guy would be a good candidate for release. With the Philadelphia Eagles, I have defensive tackle Elijah Qualls, running back Donnell Pumphrey, and offensive guard Chance Warmack. Guy I would keep an eye on is Donnell Pumphrey. Unfortunately, he did get injured in his rookie year, which forced him missing entire season. I think he had a fractured ankle. And one of the biggest problems with the Eagles' backfield is that it's overcrowded. So he's probably going to be a subject for release, or they'll try and trade him. He's a very good receiving. I think he's a very good receiving running back with return capabilities. He's probably going to be signed pretty quickly if he does get waived by the Eagles. With the Pittsburgh Steelers, the three players I have are Cody Sensabaugh, safety Marcus Allen, and defensive back Brian Allen. I'll go with Cody Sensabaugh. I think this is a guy that, it's just a matter of how crowded your defensive backfield is. And he could just be a candidate release. I think he will get signed by someone, but it's just a matter of crowding for the team. For San Francisco 49ers, I have wide receiver Aldrick Robinson, defensive tackle Earl Mitchell, and defensive lineman Ronald Blair. Now, I think when I look at Mitchell, I think this is probably not a candidate. This might not be a candidate for release unless you see someone that really does well, but he's most likely going to stay on the team. Maybe I don't see much trade in him, but he's just a name to keep an eye on. I think his spot is safe with the team, but just keep an ear out. Keep an ear out, and don't be surprised if he does get terminated. With the Seattle Seahawks, I have running back C.J. Prossie, wide receiver Amara Darboh, and edge rusher Eric Walden. The thing about Prossie is that they really thought this guy was going to be something, but injuries piled up left and right. He's being steadily, slowly but surely being thrown out of Seahawks, and I think it's actually going to happen. Now Tampa, of course, this is gonna be one shocking name, and you're probably gonna block me for the rest of my life. But I have wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, defensive back Chris Conte, and defensive lineman William Golson. Now here's why I have Deshaun Jackson. With the young wide receivers such as Chris Godwin and Adam Humphries, it's bound those guys are going to get much more playing time, and Deshaun Jackson's playing time will steadily decrease as time goes on. He might be released. Heck, he might even be released after the season. However, if they have these group of young wide receivers, say Godwin and Humphries are doing so well to where they want to play him as much as possible, and they got some other young wide receivers that are just playing well, doing outstanding, Deshaun Jackson might be gone. I don't know if they'll trade. I don't know if they will find a team that will trade for him with the kind of contract that he has, so it's more likely to be a candidate for release. But again, I think some extreme circumstances probably have to happen. It's probably not going to likely happen, but it's definitely something but if it does happen, that's something I would definitely keep an ear out on. The Tennessee Titans. Don't worry, we're almost done. We have 2 more teams to go. Tennessee Titans, I have linebacker Will Compton, offensive guard Xavier Suafilo, and wide receiver Tajay Sharp. Remember Tajay Sharp and how he's supposed to be this big deal? How he's supposed to be one of the big wide receivers for Marcus Mariota going into 2016? Yeah, how did he do? He stunk. That's what happened. And with all these wide receivers coming in together, of course you have Corey Davis, Tylan Taylor, and Rishard Matthews all being your first 3 wide receivers, and they got some other guys that are doing kind of okay. Tajay Sharp might end up getting released. This was a guy that Titans and even some analysis thought he was going to be a big deal. Yeah, he wasn't. He was not a big deal. So yeah, I do expect this guy to get released. And of course, final team Washington Redskins have running back Kabari Bibbs, defensive lineman Phil Taylor, and wide receiver Brian Quake. Now with Phil Taylor, it's more of, he had to deal with injuries. I think he stepped away from the league for a little bit, trying to recover, and then came back. I think that's really going to affect him. Especially with the arrival of Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen both of them playing really, really well. I think they'll probably do more 2 defensive lineman sets, have those edge rushers play. I think one guy probably would sub in somehow, probably take out Brian Quake and probably put in like someone like Pernell McPhee, who, if he gets released, just might be because they probably saw nothing left in him. And those, to me, are the 3 players in all 32 teams that are on the bubble. So who knows how they're going to go. I might be right on a couple of them, might be wrong on a few of them, but this is definitely something I'd like to check out. I love watching to see which kind of players get released, because it's always very interesting. And I always, sorry about that, I always want to hear what's going to happen. And of course, we had some big news, a lot of big news, a lot of contracts being talked about. For one, Odell Beckham got his contract extension, got a 5-year deal worth $95 million with $65 million in guaranteed. That's pretty impressive for the Giants. It finally happened, so they don't have to worry about it for the next 3 years. Yeah, I'm going to say 3 years, until he holds out once again and demands a much bigger contract. And he wasn't the only one that got a big contract extension. Aaron Rodgers also got a very fat contract extension, 4 years, $134 million, with perhaps $100 million in guarantees. Now, that is a man that will have no collarbone, but man, oh man, he'll be laying in the dough. And of course, I'll go ahead and give one honorable mention. That will be to Tyler Lockett, who also got a contract extension, a 3-year deal for $37.5 million, and a few, I forgot which one. And of course, you know which one hasn't got a contract extension yet? Khalil Mack. Still playing a holdout, and his holdout might get stretched out to the regular season. Yeah. One of their best defensive players ever, one of the best edge rushers ever, and he might not even play week 1 because he wants his new contract. The Raiders are, from what I'm hearing, all these reports going on, the Raiders are listening to trade offers, and so far they made their knowledge known to know what they want. They want at least 2 first-round picks. Wow, that's a very steep price to a team that the teams that could want Khalil Mack. So at least if you're interested in Khalil Mack, it's probably going to be something. It's going to be a steep price to pay. But these weren't the only player news. Of course, the big thing with Michael Kendricks. Michael Kendricks was recently discovered for having, like a lot of people call it white-collar crime, but I think it was like inside trading or something, trying to make money on the side or something. Called for it. He was admitted to the crime, and just recently, about 2 hours ago or so, he was released by the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns end up, I believe they did trade. No, they signed him. I was wrong. They signed him. And of course, with all these things going on, they thought it was too much distraction, too much things. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if he was going to get arrested or not. So they end up cutting the linebacker. And of course, before all this was going on, there were these Jamie Collins rumors that, maybe Collins might get traded or something. Yeah, all those are squashed. For now, your 3 linebackers are who they should be: Christian Kirksey, Joe Scobert, and Jamie Collins. And we got 2 more news to go up. And of course, we have to talk about Sam Darnold won the job for the New York Jets. He ended up being he's now going to be the starting quarterback. So he's the first rookie to start. Wow, that's very impressive. And I think he's probably the youngest quarterback to start since 1970. That's pretty impressive. And of course, you're thinking, did he have to battle Teddy Bridgewater or something? Because Bridgewater had a nice reason why he isn't. He started. Well, he's no longer on the Jets now. You see? Teddy Bridgewater ended up getting traded to the New Orleans Saints. Yeah, I know some people were probably waiting for me to get to that. And yeah, I have some mixed feelings about it. So yeah, Teddy Bridgewater have been traded to the Saints. Are probably one of the biggest news that's happened all day that's not a contract extension or legal problems. Yeah, so Bridgewater's heading to New Orleans, and New Orleans also got a sixth round pick, and in return, the Jets got a 3rd round pick. So from what I'm hearing, The Jets were looking for a 4th-round pick. The Saints said, okay, we'll give you a 3rd round if you give us a pick in return. They end up getting a 6th. I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. Oh, mostly coming from a Saints fan, but man. From when all this Teddy Bridgewater mania started, who should trade for him? How much is he worth? I said he was worth probably a 7th-round pick in a 2020 draft, probably conditional. Because who knows what you're going to get from him. I wasn't taking too much out of preseason. I thought, yeah, he did well, but it's preseason and all that kind of stuff. I want to see him in action. And I think the Saints pulled the trigger way too early. I think 4 things happened. 1, they were not impressed with Savage or with Hill as the backup quarterback. So where if Drew were to go down one day, Savage has too slow of a delivery and too slow on his has too slow of a delivery and holds the ball way too low, holds it like right here, and it should always be neck high. And 2, and of course, with Taysom, he's more of an athlete than a quarterback, so he's probably getting a position change. Number 2, there must have been a meeting between Drew Brees and Loomis and Peyton. He might have gone to him one day and said something like, I don't know if there's something going on or what. Probably something about his availability. And the Saints pulled the trigger early to see if they can get a good backup quarterback to see, is it a durability problem? Is it, you feel like you're starting to lose a step or so? So this is pretty interesting, and I do think there was probably a meeting that went down, which laid down the final trap. Because this is a team that was not interested to sign him in free agency, and all of a sudden they trade for him, and he was a 3rd-round pick worthy. It's pretty interesting. Number 3, the Saints were afraid he was going to be too expensive. I think they knew this guy was going to be a free agent after the season, but say Darnold gets hurt or plays poorly, and they don't want to put him in account. Bridgewater goes in, and he does well. Say he does well he starts for 2 games and does very well, has 2 touchdowns for 250 yards or so. Now all of a sudden his services got way more expensive. So this is a guy that he's probably not going to play at all, not even going to start a game. And now you're going to a guy but now if he were to stay with the Jets, chances are he probably start at least 1 game. And and what ended up happening was that they were afraid. They were afraid his services were going to be too expensive, to where they had to pay $10 or even $12 million for a guy that probably won't even start. So of course, with him probably not playing a game at all in the 2018 season, he's most likely going to be on the bench a lot. I think he's probably going to be. I think now with that, he's probably going to have a much cheaper contract. They're most likely going to give him an extension because, face it, they gave a 3rd-round pick for this guy. So they ain't cutting him. He won't be a one-off guy, but he'll definitely be on the team for quite some time. He might even end up being the future of the franchise in 2020. It's going to be pretty interesting. And number 4, I guess we're kind of rushing a little bit, fearing, a team like the Jags were going to offer something for Bridgewater or something. I guess they just really wanted him and wanted the contract leverage. So those are my reasons. Now, on whether it was a good move or not. I think when you put to all what I say, they were worried about, what's going on with Drew Brees. Was he going to be too expensive or what? It's pretty. I think they paid way too much. I think they should have given the 4th round or somehow convinced for a 5th-round pick or at least get another player like that to sweeten the deal or something. But oh my gosh. Well, this is just something we're just going to have to witness and see. And it's done. It's done. I'm not 100% in this. But if he does well, I'm hoping he change. I really hope he does change my mind. Of course, to conclude, I'm going to give my playoff predictions. Screw it. I'll do it on next week's show. I've talked so much. So yeah, next week I'll do playoff predictions because that's more suiting and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for tuning into the podcast, and I'll catch you guys next time.